Welcome to Stress-Free Phone and Skype Interviews. My name is Jez. I am a librarian and a job coach, and today I'm going to help you prepare for your interviews. So this is assuming that you have already done your resume and cover letter, you've submitted your applications, and now the hiring manager wants to talk to you. They're not going to bring you in for an in-person interview yet. Sometimes you will get an in-person interview right away, but more often you'll get a phone interview or sometimes a video interview via Skype or a similar service. When you do get that call to have a phone interview, you will most likely be called by a receptionist, a front office worker, someone other than the person interviewing you, who will schedule a time to call back and have the conversation. If you do get a call while you are out shopping or you've got noisy kids in the background, you can ask to schedule it later. It doesn't have to be the first time they call. Scheduling a time helps you become more prepared. It also makes it so you can be in a better environment for handling the interview. A couple of things you want to keep in mind is that you want to be somewhere quiet so that you can hear the interviewer and they can hear you without too much background noise. But you also want to be able to concentrate on the interview. Sometimes it helps to get outside of your home because at home you have too many distractions, all of the things that you need to do, and it's harder to focus. If you can, try booking a quiet room at your local library. These are great places for phone interviews because you can book them for short amounts of time. They have Wi-Fi, and they're generally quieter than your home if you have a family or roommates around. When you get the call to set up the interview, make sure you confirm who will be calling whom. Are you expected to call them, or will you wait for them to call you? Most likely, the hiring manager will be calling you, but it helps to confirm this up front so that you're both not sitting around waiting for the other person. Even if you are not making the call yourself, ask for a phone number in case something goes wrong, if you get disconnected, or if they have not called at the arranged time. If it's 15 minutes past when the manager was supposed to call, you can then call them. That's enough time waiting for them. They probably just got busy with something else or lost track of the time. Something I like to tell all job hunters is to make sure you have a professional sounding voicemail greeting so that it's not just the default reading of your number. They know who they're calling and they have the right person. If they have this information, they are more likely to leave a voicemail rather than trying to call back later. If you're like me and you only answer numbers that you recognize, you might then miss the interview calls multiple times because that person does not leave a message, unsure of who they are talking to on the phone. My sister, for the longest time, her voicemail greeting was, "Hello? What did you say? I can't hear you." And on, leading people to think that she was on the other end when it was her voicemail greeting. That is not the kind of voicemail that you want a hiring manager to listen to when they first call you. It's kind of an introduction to you without the actual conversation. Similarly, a lot of people, especially younger people, who record a new voicemail greeting with their name and their number are more likely to get offered a job interview. It's because if they call and you sound like, a young kid, they might think that you are unprofessional, that you are not old enough for the position, or that they have the wrong number. Your voicemail greeting does not have to be anything complex, just, "Hello, you have reached your name, at your phone number. please leave a message with your name and phone number, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. That's all it needs to be. But it does make a difference. While you're waiting for the call, this is your chance to do your research if you haven't already. Hopefully you have done some research into the company for your resume and especially your cover letter if one was required. But sometimes job hunts can take months at a time, and it may have been a very long time since you wrote that cover letter or applied for this position. So this is the time to refresh yourself or look into the company a little bit more. Take a look at their website, see what they have front and center, read their mission statement or their cultural statements, check out the About Us pages. This way you can see what the company values, what they think is most important, what they're pushing out to the public. And take a look at their social media. Have they shared anything recently? Is there a big announcement that you might want to know about? You can also do a search through the news tab in Google to see if there are any recent articles, anything in the news. Sometimes there are some red flags that you can find that way, or more likely you'll find something positive that you can bring up in your interview to talk about why you're interested in this company, why you're interested in its position, but also to show that you have put in the work and done your research before this call, that you are dedicated to this particular job search. If you have the interviewer's name, which a lot of times you won't, but if you're able to get that phone number, try to get a name so that you know who to ask for when you call the company. If you get that name, you can take a look at them on LinkedIn, see how long they've been at the company, if they've had multiple positions there, what has their career been like, and maybe you have some contacts or interests or schools in common, something to connect you to that person. You don't want to virtually stalk the person. I recommend just sticking to LinkedIn. This is their professional profile. It's what they put out about themselves and their career. It's not their personal Facebook. But it's a good way to see if you have connections, because 70% of job hunters will get their next job through some form of networking. This also just helps you get a better feel for the person. It feels like it's not a total stranger, and that might make you more comfortable going into the phone call. When the time comes to have the actual phone interview, make sure your phone is fully charged. You might also want to have your phone charger near you, just in case. It's kind of Murphy's Law that it's never going to run out until you absolutely need it to work, and that's when your battery will die. Throughout your whole job process, one of the things that I recommend, and you've probably heard if you've listened to any of my other presentations, but I recommend putting together a job hunting kit. This is just a folder that contains your resume, your cover letters, a list of references, the job posting or job description, a pad of paper, and a pen or pencil. These are things that you'll need throughout the whole process. It's helpful to have them in front of you and easily accessible. That also counts for when you are having your phone interview. You want to have a copy of your resume in front of you, as well as the job posting or job description. When you are job hunting, it's helpful to save a copy of the job posting and especially the job description when you apply. Most often, when a company or hiring manager start to make calls for phone interviews or really consider candidates, or when they close the job posting to applications, they also remove the job posting and the job description from their website, and you will not be able to reference these later. This will be very helpful, especially in their interview stage, so that you know what you need to talk about, you can prepare yourself a little bit better, and have questions ready for the interviewer. You should also make a list of past achievements and talking points, things that you want to bring up. These might be successes, big projects you've worked on, maybe awards, or just a list of what you've done at each job. If you are someone who gets nervous on the phone or in interviews or just talking to someone you don't know, you might not think of all of these things while you are on the phone. So it helps to have them right in front of you. This is also very helpful for writing your resume and your cover letter. And this is something you can put in your job kit and bring to interviews. You can have them in front of you even when you are in the office having a live interview. Take a look over your resume and identify any concerns you might have, any red flags. Look at it through the eyes of a prospective employer. What on here would give you pause to call this person in for an interview or offer them the job? Be prepared to answer those kinds of questions. It might have to do with a long period of time where you were unemployed. It might have to do with changing jobs very often. Or you might be changing careers. You might be switching from one type of job to another. Those are things that the interviewer will bring up and ask about, and you should be prepared to answer them when that time comes. You want to practice your answers to common interview questions. You can do a Google search for this. I will also have some resources available for you at the end of this presentation that you can refer to. Many of these questions will remain the same regardless of the position you are applying for or the company you are applying for. These are things like, tell me about yourself, what do you think your strengths are? But these very common questions that you know will most likely be asked, you can prepare for ahead of time, almost like you would prepare for a test in school. When you have the phone call, you want to dress like you would for an in-person interview. It sounds silly because the interviewer will not know the difference if you are wearing a suit versus if you're wearing your pajamas. It will help put you in the right mindset for an interview. It'll make you a little bit more focused and it'll make you feel more confident. Now, with phone interviews as well as in-person interviews, you never want to dress so professionally that you're uncomfortable. You still want to be able to have the conversation easily, feel confident, and not spend the whole time thinking about how your clothes don't fit right or it's not something you normally wear and you just don't feel like yourself. You should still be comfortable even when you're trying to look professional. Make sure you smile. They can't see you, but you can hear a smile over the phone. So it helps. It makes you seem more friendly, it might seem more open. So this will really help. You also want to make sure you're sitting up straight. This, again, just makes you sound more professional, more confident, and you'll be able to project your voice a little bit better, speak more clearly. You want to make sure that you're not chewing gum, that you don't have anything else in your mouth, and you're not covering your face with your hands. A lot of people do this if they are nervous about talking to someone or nervous on the phone, or sometimes when you're on the phone and not face-to-face, you're not necessarily thinking about all these physical cues, but these in particular will affect your tone, your voice. Maybe they won't be able to hear you if you have your hand on your face. Make sure you have a bottle of water nearby or something to drink so that you can take sips when necessary. If you're someone who gets nervous, but also just if you're going to be doing a lot of talking, your mouth is going to get a little bit dry and you won't be able to speak as clearly. Plus, sometimes it helps to just take a break. Just need for a second to think. Go ahead and take that sip of water. Make sure you answer the phone professionally. Ideally, you know when this phone call is happening. You are prepared to pick up that number even if you don't recognize it. But if you are someone who is really job hunting, you might want to start picking up unknown numbers. There's a good chance that they'll be spam, but you don't want to miss connecting with a potential employer when you truly need a job. So when you answer, Just say like, "Hello, this is Jez. Who am I speaking with?" Something along those lines. State your name. Don't just say hi or what. You're still talking to the person even if you are not seeing them in front of you. While you're on the phone, you can take notes. This is things that they might bring up, questions you have for later. Taking notes during the phone interview and even the in-person interview can be very helpful because as you move forward in the job hunt, you may want to refer back to those things, and it also helps you concentrate a little bit using the left side of your brain to write things down. It also just puts things right in front of you so that you're less likely to forget them. If you're waiting to finish one answer or waiting for the other person to stop talking, these are things that you want to touch on when you're able to. Stay on topic, focus on the job hunt and the questions being asked. Try to be concise in your answers. Don't give overly long stories. Don't get too personal. They don't need your life story. They are just looking for information right now to determine whether or not they want to bring you in for an in-person interview. That said, you do want to keep it conversational and friendly. Act like yourself. Don't try to be another person. Don't put on airs. Be comfortable with who you are. Your personality is actually a very big part of a job hunt because places are now looking for a cultural fit. So it's not just, do you have the skills they ask for? Do you check all the boxes they want? But are you someone with whom they will get along well? Do you seem like someone that will be a good fit to their team? Maybe there's something in particular that their team doesn't have and they're looking for that quality in a potential candidate. If at all possible, avoid talking about salary or benefits until the in-person interview. You don't want to box yourself into anything. You also don't want to be written off if they are looking simply for the person that they can pay the least amount of money. Convince them of your skills and your experience first, and then you can have the conversation about salary and you can get into negotiations there. With any kind of job interview, keep in mind that this is not a test, it is a conversation. So you should also be asking questions of the interviewer, the hiring manager, whomever it may be, because you want to know, is this position good for you? Is this somewhere you want to work? You can find out some of that from the job posting, but not enough to make a big life-changing decision. This is your chance to get a little bit more information. Some questions that you might want to ask are, what qualities are you looking for in this position? This is your chance to learn what type of person they want to hire, what kind of employee, and you can tell them if you are that person or not. Or maybe they're looking for something that you don't feel comfortable with, that's not really who you are. You might want to look elsewhere, and it's helpful to know that earlier rather than spend so much time on this job hunt for a job that you will inevitably turn down. What do you view as the most challenging part of this job? How would you describe the company culture? Again, this is a very important question, something you want to know ahead of time that you can't find out through the job posting. This is about, what do they value? Is it very professional? Is it more laid back? There are so many toxic work environments out there, and you want to make sure that you are in one where you feel comfortable and you feel like you can be yourself. What does a typical work week look like in this job? What's the next step in the hiring process? When can I expect to hear back? At the end, give them the opportunity to ask you something else. Say, are there any other questions I can answer for you? Maybe something else came up. It also just shows that you are open and forthcoming and you want to continue the conversation. Now, Skype interviews are a little bit different. There is the added level of the video component, but you're still not in the room with the interviewer. A Skype interview might come after a phone interview. It's generally not the first kind of interview, but it may happen if there are multiple steps in the interview, or if you are in a different place than the company or the HR manager. Maybe you're applying for something local, but you need to go through their corporate HR, and that person is in another state. So you can have a Skype conversation without either of you having to pay to fly back and forth. The COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic has changed this a little bit, where you might get a Skype interview instead of an in-person interview, even if you are nearby and farther in the process, due to the need of social distancing. Similar to your voicemail, you want to clean up your Skype presence, give them a professional looking username. You don't want to be Sparkle Princess 89. If you need to create a new account, go ahead and do that. I mentioned this in other presentations. You want your email to be very similar. If at all possible, use your name. If you have a common name, it can be your name followed by, the type of career that you have. So mine could be Jez Lehman, librarian. Of course, I don't need that because my name is Jez, but if I were in that position, I could add that at the end. It's even more important to dress professionally when you are on video. You want to make sure you dress professionally from your head to your toes, so even though they won't see you from the waist down, that you still feel more professional, more prepared, more confident. Additionally, when I was first putting together this presentation a few years ago, I was doing some research and I came across a video of someone who was doing a video. I don't think they were an interview, I think it was something else, but they saw a spider and they jumped up, and then that person was just standing in their boxers. You don't know what's going to happen. You may as well just prepare for it. Be aware of what is in your background. A more neutral location is best. Sometimes the best thing is actually just to sit in front of a blank wall, because things in the background can be distracting. A lot of people like to sit in front of their bookshelves so they can seem more intellectual. This could actually be a little bit of a distraction. If you're like me, whenever I'm watching an author or a librarian or somebody sitting in front of their bookshelf, I'm trying to see what titles are behind them. I want to know what they're reading, and I'm not necessarily paying attention to what's on the video. You also want to make sure that there's not people walking through your background, that your pets are not coming in and out. You want to go somewhere quiet so they can hear you, but also somewhere you're not going to be interrupted. If you need to tell your family or your roommates, let them know, hey, you just need to be quiet for the next half hour. It's really important to me that you stay out of this room. Because you are on video, you want to provide good lighting. You don't want to become like a shadowy figure sitting in front of a bright window. Never sit in front of windows. The best thing you can do is place a small lamp right behind your webcam so that you have light on you, but you are not having glare on your computer screen. Similar to the window, you always want to make sure there's no backlighting, because your video will most likely adjust to that light and it will just make you very shadowy and unclear on the video. I love this YouTube clip. This is from an interview. Most of you have probably seen this before. This gentleman was doing an interview on the news and didn't realize that his daughter was walking in the background. A minute after this, the baby crawls in, and then you see the mom come in. It is hilarious, but it's very distracting. But I'm so happy that this video exists, because I'm able to bring it up in these classes to really show how you can prepare for things, but it can go wrong, and you need to be aware of what's happening behind you, because this is what the interviewer is seeing when you are not necessarily looking at yourself. There are more technical aspects of a Skype call that don't necessarily apply with a phone interview or an in-person interview. You need to have a camera, of course, and you want to set up somewhere stable. You don't want to be holding your phone while you're having the Skype call. It'll be kind of shaky. You don't want it to look like a horror movie. You want to sit back further than usual from your computer than you normally would. You want to make sure your face, but also your shoulders are visible. You don't want to give someone a view up your nose or be too close. If possible, use an external microphone, not the one that's built into your device. Some headphones have great mics on them. Apple headphones and AirPods have fantastic mics. These are great for that. If you are using the headphones, make sure it doesn't brush against your clothing or your hair. It will give a staticky sound and they won't be able to hear you very well. Make sure you're wearing headphones. This is partly so you can hear the interviewer better, but also so that there's no echo when they are speaking and it's coming out on your end and they're hearing that through your speakers. This just helps eliminate that. Make sure you have a stable internet connection. If you don't have very good internet at home, go to the library, go to a friend's house, go somewhere where you're least likely to have an interrupted call. If you live with a lot of other people, again, it might be helpful to just go talk to your roommates, say, hey, I have this very important Skype interview. Can you all just stay off the Wi-Fi for half an hour? So it's not taking away so much bandwidth away from you. You want to keep your computer plugged in so that you don't lose power. Video calls will drain your battery much more quickly than you're used to. So again, if something's going to go wrong, it's going to go wrong during your interview. You may as well take the precautions to protect your tech, essentially. Just like you can practice the questions with other people, friends or family, you can practice video calls with them as well. Call your friend, call your grandma. I bet she'd be happy to hear from you. Do a Skype call, video call, FaceTime, whatever you want to do, so that they can see how you present yourself. If you're doing anything you may not be aware of, if there are things in your background that are distracting, or they can see more of your room than you think. It's helpful to do this. With the pandemic, you may have gotten a lot more practice at this than you would like, and this may not be as necessary, but it's great to be able to practice those interview questions with another person. It helps get you in the right mindset and prepare. And I always think it's really helpful to practice those things with someone who does not know your job, because there may be things that you're talking about or jargon that you're using that that person doesn't understand, and you want to keep it as clear as possible when you are in the actual interview. When you're on the Skype call, make sure you silence your phone and any notifications that may pop up on your screen. You can generally turn them to Do Not Disturb just by clicking that little moon. It'll shut off your notifications for a little bit. You want to close all other programs on your computer or whatever device you are using so you don't have multiple things vying for bandwidth or power. This will help keep your image clearer. Make plans for if you get disconnected. Which person should try to make the call? Do you have a phone number that you can call them if the video call does not work? You want to maintain eye contact just as you would an in-person interview. But the trick is you want to maintain eye contact with the camera, not the person's face on the screen. If you're looking at the screen and trying to make eye contact with their actual eyes, you will actually be looking down. If this were one of my in-person classes, I would actually give you a set of googly eyes to tape around your camera. It seems silly, but it actually does make it easier to make eye contact, or at least remember to look up and look at the camera while you are speaking. You also want to be conscious of your body language. They can hear these things over the phone, but with Skype, they can see you. It's a video call. So you want to smile and sit up straight. Stay still as much as you can. If you are somebody who gets nervous or has trouble staying still, it can help to have some kind of fidget. You can have this in your hand under the table as long as it doesn't make any distracting noises. This can be very helpful if you have a sensory processing disorder or ADHD, as it helps tune out all the additional stimuli and help you stay still and focus on the call. Something that I recommend doing during a Skype interview is to cover up your image on the screen with a sticky note so that you are focusing on the interviewer and maintaining eye contact with the camera, and you're not being distracted by your own image, especially if you're thinking like, do I really move like that? Like, is that what my face does? Or worrying about how your hair or your clothes look. It helps to just take away the temptation to look at that. Just go ahead and cover it up. Treat it like you are talking to the person in the room. When the call is over, whether it's phone or Skype, take a few minutes to write down some notes for yourself about the call so that you can bring these up in future interviews, so that you can mention them in an email, and to help you prepare for future interviews with other companies. You know, what went well? What kind of questions could you have answered better? Was there something they asked you that you were not prepared for? All of these things help, and they're good to keep in that job kit. Send a thank you email to the interviewer. You can add a little personal note if there was some kind of connection that you talked about, something you have in common. I occasionally will bring up articles in an interview, something that I read, and I will share those if I think that they would be interesting to the other person. Now, a letter through the actual postal system, physical card, these aren't so necessary for phone interviews especially, but Skype interviews also. If the Skype interview is replacing the in-person interview, a physical card is a great thing to send. It's just a nice touch. It serves as a physical reminder to the interviewer, and it makes them feel like you appreciated the time and effort that they also put into the interview. I love the website postable.com. It has thousands of cards to choose from. It's online. You can pick a card, you can write your message in there, and they will mail a physical card, and you can schedule them in advance. So if it's going to take 2 or 3 days to get there, you can schedule that so that it arrives the day after your interview. So it's nice and quick. If you have a way to contact the interviewer, follow up with them after about a week, just to see how the process is going, if you can expect to hear back, what's the timeline. It helps to ask during the interview, what are the next steps in the process, how long can you expect to hear. Some industries move a lot slower than others, and a week may be way too soon. Maybe they're not moving on to the next stage for 4 or 6 weeks. But sometimes they want to make a decision right away, and it's helpful to follow up with them. You can call them. I think it's nice sometimes email. It's less likely to interrupt their day, but it could also get lost in their inbox, and there's not that same personal touch. I would leave this up to your discretion, your comfort level, whatever you think is most appropriate after having spoken to this person. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you found something that will help you with your phone or Skype interviews or the job hunting process in general. If you go to my website, which is jezlehman.com/phone-Skype, this is a page specifically for people who have attended this class. It's not accessible through the main menu, but on there I have uploaded the slides to this presentation, as well as a handout and links to helpful websites and resources that I think can help you with phone and Skype interviews in particular, but the job hunting process in general. If you have questions, you can contact me through my website. I also highly recommend checking in with your local library. The libraries have fantastic resources for job hunters online and in person, and your librarian is generally the best resource you could have for anything. Thank you again, and have a great day.